Hello and welcome to the view from the virtual IMF and World Bank annual meetings. I'm joined today by Christophe Lecourtier, Director General of Business France, to discuss France's economic outlook. Christophe, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, good morning.
Now, we're talking today against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also against a changing international political arena. We're seeing rising tensions between the US and China. We're seeing the UK's decision to leave the European Union playing out, and also a trend towards greater protectionism across the global economy. Where does France stand today in this changing world from an investment perspective?
Since 2017, obviously after the election of President Macron, France has been in a pretty good situation compared to previous years or previous decades. And there is one achievement that I can remind to you is that from 2017 to 2019, we've climbed to the highest position, highest place of the European podium in terms of investment, FDI, foreign direct investment. We had been for many years number 3 after Germany and of course Britain. And when the president was elected, he told us that we had to become number 1 before the end of his mandate, of his term. But this is the sort of things that, of course, high-ranking politicians usually say. It's much harder to make it real. But in less than 3 years, we've become the number 1, and this is not, Business France that is telling that. It's EY, you know, there's an annual report by EY comparing Britain, Germany, and France and other European countries. And for the very first time, probably in decades, France in 2019 has been by far the number 1 country in Europe in terms of FDI. And this is for us a great achievement because, as you know, French people and sometimes even French business believe that it's hard for us to win in the global world, in the globalization contest. And this has been possible because a true pro-business path has been followed in the last 3 years. Okay, this was the situation at the beginning of 2020 because I'm talking about what happened in 2019. Of course, as any other European country and more and others, the pandemic has been, has traumatized the French economy. And then the issue was how would the government and the business community react to this situation that was absolutely, of course, unexpected.
Now, this is an interesting point because the reaction, at least from the government, has been significant with a massive stimulus and recovery package around 100 billion euros in size. To what extent do you think that will potentially unleash the potential of the French economy moving forward, particularly in areas like the green economy, for example?
Exactly. A first reaction with what you mentioned, a very strong emergency plan, with measures that have been close to, in terms of financial support to the economy, close to 20% of the French GDP. It's probably one of the most ambitious emergency measures in Europe. You probably know that the state guaranteed loans in the timesheet, how do you say that, for companies, state guaranteed loans amounted to more than 120 billion euro. This was the very first measure. And the second one, you've probably heard about it, has been a partial unemployment scheme that has been granted to close to 9 million employees in France. And that represents roughly 40% of the working population in the private sector in France. Close to 50% has been transferred to the balance sheet of the state during the period from March to July or August. Now it's another chapter that has begun in September, and you mentioned it, we call it a stimulus plan, relaunching measures, and what is at stake is not only to come back to where we were, let's say at the beginning of 2020, but to be able to use correctly this stimulus plan to foster a sort of upgrading of the French economy. And of course, this is more or less the equation for many other developed countries. To use, as we all say, the crisis as an opportunity to modernize the economy and to make happen what has been maybe a bit difficult to achieve before that. But this is the reason why I mentioned when we started this interview what we've been able to do during the first 3 years of President Macron's mandate. So I think that I mean, investors and more largely speaking, the business community can trust what the government has launched recently because of the results that we've been able to achieve in the last 3 years. What is really a bit unique in what's happening in France nowadays is that this government, after 3 years and a half and being 18 months close to the next general and presidential election, has chosen to confirm the direction, the path that had been followed in the past 3 years, which is to boost, to foster modernization of the economy in a real, true pro-business manner.